We sat down this week for his exclusive first interview. Colin, thank you so much for joining us. You are the Assistant AG for the National Fraud Enforcement Division right here at the Department of Justice, and you were the first person to ever hold this role. This is all brand new. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about it and why this was so necessary to do right now.
This division is really intended to combat a keen problem that's facing the American people. And it is that their pocketbook is at risk every day from those inside the United States and even international actors who have really industrialized fraud against government benefit programs. We're going to build a coordinated program and comprehensive program that is laser focused on those who are robbing the American people. It's an honor to serve in this role, and I will be working day and night with my team to help protect the financial security of our country.
So when you got in here, what was the first order of business here? How, what are day-to-day operations like, but what was the first thing you did? Because this is a mammoth undertaking.
I think the estimates, the conservative estimates, are somewhere around $230 billion in fraud against the taxpayer every year. So it's a mammoth problem that requires a mammoth response. And that includes the processes, the procedures, it includes the personnel. It includes our relationships with our state and local partners to ensure that we have the capacity to truly reach all edges of our country, because the fraud is happening across the entire map. Just a couple weeks ago, everyone did their civic duty and they filed and they paid their taxes. And it cannot be that on April 15th, those taxes are paid, and on April 16th, those taxes then immediately are exploited by those who see our government programs and our government agencies as the softest target in their desire to have money and to get rich quick.
Well, I think the American people really started to understand how rampant the fraud was when we looked at Minnesota. We did see this week some significant raids there. And what's interesting, Colin, is that Governor Tim Walz, who had at one time very recently pushed back against any investigation into the fraud there and said he had no idea any of this was going on, suddenly wants to take a lot of credit, it seems, for the crackdown that's gone on there. What is your reaction to that?
What I will say to that is that our teams have been working around the clock to solve the problems that we've seen and uncovered in Minnesota. And the activity that folks saw earlier this week was just another demonstration of the night and day, 24/7 attention that we are putting onto this problem. With respect to Governor Walz, I see that he has a newfound interest, and I would say that if he is truly serious about solving the fraud problem, then he should stop suing in court. He should, in fact, turn over the information that would help maximize and accelerate investigations. This includes information with respect to SNAP fraud in his state. This includes information that's been long sought with respect to voter rolls in his state. So if he is truly serious about getting into this game, then he should engage with us on those issues and actually provide information that would turbocharge the investigations in his state.
Minnesota maybe was the start of things, but people are now looking to California. And I know here at the DOJ, you guys actually had some announcements in California and about California this week, if you wouldn't mind kind of bringing us up to speed.
That's right. So we have announced a strike force team that we are placing in the Northern District of California, in the District of Nevada, and in the District of Arizona. And this will be 10 or so additional prosecutors on top of the teams that we already have in place. They will be responsible for rooting out, in particular, healthcare fraud that is rampant in these districts. Our decision making for where to scale these resources is driven by data. And we look to the data to see where are the soft spots, where are the places where criminals are exploiting and hiding behind the cloak of healthcare to commit fraud. And these 3 jurisdictions have been identified as places that we really need to put some quick focus on. We have additional strike force teams across the country as well that are combating this problem, in addition to a significant presence that we've placed in the District of Minnesota.
What would be something that might surprise the American people, or is there something that they maybe aren't even aware of that you guys are looking at?
I think the thing that's shocking to me is that the federal government gives out billions of dollars a year to support good programs that Americans across the country need. And what often happens is this money will be given wholesale to the states. And once they go to the states, the federal government, even though it's our money, we have no idea who ends up receiving that money or the protocols that the state has in place to ensure that it only goes to the people who are deserving of it and who qualify for it. With respect to our relationships with the state, they can do significantly better to help us understand what happens after we give over billions of dollars to the states, who is seeking to take that money. And in many cases, it's not the hungry children, it's not the needy families, it's not the hospice patients, it's fraudsters.
For any Americans who kind of hear about this sort of thing, and they're taxpayers, they're law-abiding citizens, but they say, look, I'm not benefiting from any of these programs. Why should I care about this?
Because it's their money on the line. That's who the criminals are exploiting. They're exploiting the people of the United States. Just like water runs downhill, fraudsters will go to the easiest target. Speed has been the primary factor in terms of dispensing money, not the identity of the recipient, not whether there are red flags of fraud. We're setting in place, both with the White House Anti-Fraud Task Force and within the DOJ, the front-end security protocols to make sure that the money is going to the right people in the first place.
Why do you think that this has been allowed to grow into, what it has become, which, as you're saying, is so much money?
I think part of it is a leadership issue, that this is not easy work. This is a hard problem, huge numbers that are at stake. But the current leadership under President Trump, under Vice President Vance, under Attorney General Blanche, they're not scared of doing hard things. And it's not that there hasn't been a will, I wouldn't say. I would say there hasn't been a way to be able to effectively wrap our arms around this problem. That's what we're seeking to solve for here.
If you are successful at rooting out all of this fraud, all of the waste, how do we prevent ourselves from getting back into a space like this?
I would say the financial security of a country is one of the top sovereign responsibilities of a nation. We've identified the problem, and now we have to build the financial security protocols that will prevent the money from going out in the first instance. And then we have to demonstrate that there is a consequence for those who are engaged in fraud. That person needs to know that we are building a program and we are focused on finding them, not just the $100 million fraudsters, but the people who are engaged in it at the $50,000 level, at the $100,000 level, $150,000 level. There is no longer any tundra of fraud that's immune from federal prosecution. And so that, I think, is how we do not go back. We build up our financial security protocols on the front end, and we have a program that's big enough to get you on the back end if you pierce those security protocols and rob from the American people.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.